Welcome to Training for Scrambling. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you a simple way to get in better shape for all your scrambling adventures. First, a little about me. My name is Sarah Maurer, and I'm a certified personal trainer and certified breathworker. I'm also one of the assistant instructors here in the Alpine Scrambling course. I took the course in 2016, and it has added so much fun and adventure to my life, which is why I teach. I want the same experience for you. So why talk about training? Some of you probably hike every weekend, and the thought of putting a training routine in place may never have crossed your mind. But here are 3 reasons I think it pays to be in the best shape possible for scrambling. First reason to train. Scrambling is so much more fun and less stressful when you're confident you can keep pace with the group. And when you're worried about slowing everyone down, that brings up a lot of anxiety, right? So interesting fact for you, differences in pacing are actually the #1 cause of conflict on CMC trips. I learned this in Trip Leader School, and in my experience, it is 100% true. Second reason to train is to make scrambling safer. Scrambling is very committing, meaning once you're on a ridge, there's no easy way off. Colorado is prone to afternoon thunderstorms, so no matter the forecast, we generally try to summit by noon. Having good fitness will help you move steadily and complete your climb within this window of safety. And finally, train so you can have more fun. Some of the scrambling trips are challenging, but they should also be enjoyable. When you're in good shape, you'll have more conversations, take more pictures, and go home with better memories. And that, my friends, is honestly the whole point. So all of us here want you to train safely and sanely. Here are a few things to remember. First, if you're new to training, or if this is gonna be a big step up for you, definitely check in with your doctor. This is true for everyone, but especially if you've previously been somewhat sedentary or have avoided exercising at very high intensities. Second, increase the difficulty of your training slowly. You don't have to do some of the things I'm going to talk about, like steep hikes and interval workouts, right away. In fact, diving in too fast will probably slow you down in the long run. So start where you are and take small steps toward your goals. 3, get plenty of rest. Most people think exercise makes you stronger, but it actually makes you weaker. It's the recovery in between workouts where the magic happens. So build plenty of rest days and easy days into your training schedule. As we'll discuss in a minute, it's important to track your training. 2 apps I recommend are Strava and Training Peaks. Both have free versions that are great for beginners. It's possible to track your hikes with a phone. However, you'll find that scrambles and training hikes can be long, and this tends to wear down your phone battery. For this reason, if you're really into this training thing, it makes sense to invest in a heart rate watch. I really think that this was one piece of gear that changed my life. So now that we've laid the groundwork, let's get into the nitty-gritty. In the next few slides, I'm going to show you how to build a weekly workout schedule. So for these next few slides, I'm going to share a weekly schedule I often assign to my clients who are training for hiking and mountaineering. What you're going to do is schedule 3 types of workouts. They are 1 to 2 training hikes, 2 to 4 in-town cardio workouts, and 1 to 2 strength workouts. And we'll dig into each of these workouts and what they look like in just a minute. I like this framework because it's simple and very flexible. So you can change it each week to fit what's happening in your life, and your schedule will also change as you get more fit. To bring it to life, let's look at some examples. So let's say Susie enjoys hiking on the weekends, but she's new to training. Here's what her schedule might look like. As you can see, she's doing a few easy cardio and strength workouts during the week and then hiking for half a day on the weekend. Pretty simple, right? After a few weeks of easy training, Susie's no longer a beginner. Susie is ready to level up. So at this point, her schedule might look like this. And as you can see, her cardio workouts are getting longer, and so is her training hike. And you can see that on Monday, she's got something called LT cardio scheduled. That's an interval workout, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. And Susie is working out 6 days a week now because it works for her schedule, but there's nothing magic about that. Anywhere from 3 to 6 days a week would be appropriate at this level. So here's an example of how this framework can change depending on what's happening in your life. Let's say Susie joins a CMC hike after work on Wednesday. So that means she has 2 training hikes this week, which is great. And to make room for these, she's decreasing the difficulty and frequency of her in-town workouts. You can see she's only doing 2. And also notice that before a training hike, Susie tries to schedule a rest day or an easy day. She knows these training hikes are important and she wants to be fresh for them so she can push herself a bit. This is a good practice that you can totally steal from Susie. Now that we've seen how to build a schedule, let's take a closer look at each of these types of workouts. So first, let's talk about training hikes. These are your number one priority. If you can only do one workout a week, make it a training hike. And while we'll call these training hikes for simplicity, there are a few other sports you can substitute. So backpacking, snow climbing, scrambling, snowshoeing, and ski touring also build hiking fitness, especially if there's significant uphill. So feel free to mix and match, especially in the winter when the trails might be covered. Here's a really important training hike tip I want you to remember. Your training hikes should have a similar elevation profile to the goal trip you are training for. Elevation profiles are measured in feet per mile, so they give you an idea of the steepness of the hike. Now, here's the thing. Scrambles are really steep and they work different muscles than casual hiking. So a lot of people choose training hikes that are too easy. And how do you figure out an elevation profile so you can avoid this mistake? First, you'll need distance and elevation gain data. You can often find this online or in a guidebook. I've listed some helpful sources on this slide. Next, add elevation gain and elevation loss. Note that these will usually be the same unless you're doing an A to B hike. Then divide by the total mileage to get the elevation profile. So, for example, the Castle Trail at Mount Falcon has 1,740 feet of elevation gain and also 1,740 feet of loss, assuming you hike to the top and then hike back down. So add those up and then divide by the total trip distance of 8 miles. The elevation profile of the Castle Trail is 435 feet per mile. So how does that stack up against some of the scrambles that we do in the class? Here are a few popular scrambles in Colorado and their elevation profiles. As you can see, these range from about 600 to 1,000 feet per mile. So hiking up the Castle Trail, even with a pack, is probably not going to prepare you all that well. So what training hikes should you be doing? Well, fortunately, we have some good options here in the Colorado Front Range. Here are the elevation profiles for some popular training hikes in the Denver and Boulder area. And notice that Mount Morrison gives you a lot of bang for your buck, even though it's short. There's a reason all the mountaineers love Mount Morrison. And if you're not currently doing steep hikes, I've also included some gentler options you can use to work your way up. A good goal for a scrambler is to work your way up to training hikes where the elevation profile is greater than 600 feet per mile. A few additional training hike tips that will help you. First, as we discussed, there's no need to jump into super steep hikes if you're not there yet. If you need to start at 300 feet per mile, that's okay. Next week, do 350 or 400. Remember, it's best to increase gradually to avoid injury and mental burnout. Next, training hikes don't have to be long to be effective. Mount Morrison is just 3.6 miles round trip, but with an elevation profile of over 1,000, it gives you a lot of bang for your buck. And finally, you don't have to go to the ends of the earth to get good training hikes in, nor do you have to go high up in the mountains. Options like Mount Morrison and Bear Peak, they're close and they can be hiked almost every day of the year. In the winter, be sure to take foot traction like Catula microspikes. So let's shift to your in-town cardio workouts. While these aren't as juicy as training hikes, they serve an important purpose. Specifically, they allow you to create and sustain a training stimulus in a controlled environment. It's hard to do a proper interval workout while hiking because the terrain is so changeable, but it's pretty simple to do on a treadmill or a jogging track. So for in-town cardio workouts, aim for 2 to 4 per week. They can be 30 to 90 minutes in duration. And unless otherwise specified, they should be done at the top of conversational pace. At this intensity, your breath will get deeper and a little faster, but you should still be able to hold a conversation as you go. On a 1 to 10 scale, this effort level should feel like about a 5 or 6. Generally, we want our out-of-town workouts to be sport-specific to hiking. This means there should be some element of stepping up. Walking on an incline treadmill or a stair mill or running on hilly terrain all work really well. Interestingly, research suggests that cycling also works well, at least from a cardiovascular standpoint. So feel free to ride or hit the stationary bike once or twice a week if you enjoy that. For intermediate athletes, I recommend adding lactate threshold workouts to your program to increase hiking speed and comfort. I won't get into exactly what lactate threshold is here, other than to say it increases your efficiency at higher exercise intensities. So start these workouts once you have a solid base of fitness, maybe about 4 to 8 weeks of regular training, depending on your starting point. And during these workouts, you want to spend some of your time at lactate threshold intensity. On a scale of 1 to 10, that's about an 8 or a 9. And at this effort level, talking should be difficult. You shouldn't be able to say more than 5 to 7 words at a time. That's much harder than your regular cardio and your regular training hikes. The good news is that we usually structure these workouts as intervals, so you don't have to stay at that intensity for very long. Finally, you're going to do lactate threshold workouts 1 to 3 times per week. I recommend starting with 1 and adding a second one once you're able to push and recover well afterward. So how do you structure a lactate threshold workout? Here's an example from Susie, who's an intermediate athlete. She's going to do this entire workout while walking on the incline treadmill. So she starts with 20 minutes of easy cardio, kind of working up to the top of conversational pace. Then she performs 3 10-minute intervals at lactate threshold intensity. Remember, that's about an 8 on a 10-point scale. As she goes, she adjusts the treadmill speed and incline to get the right difficulty level. Between intervals, she walks on low angle at an easy pace for about 5 minutes to recover. She finishes up with 10 minutes of cool down, gradually decreasing her effort to walking pace. Now, keep in mind that 3 10-minute intervals at lactate threshold intensity, it may be too hard if you're just starting out. If you want to learn more about how to build effective lactate threshold workouts, I strongly recommend grabbing Joe Friel's book, Fast After 50. Even if you're not 50, it's an extremely useful training manual, and it actually has tables that will help you build easy, medium, and difficult lactate threshold interval workouts. So I'll drop a link to the book in the show notes section for this lesson. And last, let's talk about strength. As a scrambler, your number one priority is to build your aerobic engine. However, having a great engine is worthless if the car is dragging its exhaust system and a wheel goes flying off. Strength training is like maintenance for the car. It allows it to withstand the rigors of going fast and far. I recommend scramblers keep strength training simple, about 20 minutes twice a week. This may not seem like much, but keep in mind that you are also building strength on your training hikes. Rather than using every machine in the gym, maybe focus on 4 to 6 compound exercises that target your hiking specific muscles. Rather than describe these here, I'm going to drop some links to videos in the lesson notes that show you some of the best exercises. And finally, it's so important to focus on form during strength training. It's more effective to do 1 squat with perfect form than 20 with sloppy form. And in that case, doing 20 might even hurt you. So if you're new to strength training, I recommend a couple of sessions with a trainer to learn about proper movements and technique. It's a great investment in your scrambling future. Finally, before you go, I want to leave you with a few sanity tips to help you get the most out of training. 1, training should fit into your life and not the other way around. Build a schedule that works for you, your job, and your family. If you can't do as much training as you'd like, focus on doing less, but doing it really well. 2, there are no magic numbers. Everyone wants a test they can take to know they're ready for scrambling school, and there really isn't one. Just do your best with the time available and let your best be enough. And finally, keep things fun. Training takes some time, and if you don't enjoy that time, what's the point? So use it as an excuse to explore new trails, hang out with friends, listen to a great podcast, or whatever brings enjoyment to you. And friends, that's all I have for you. If you have questions, reach out anytime. Here are the best ways to contact me. And until then, happy training and enjoy the class.